Coming up, GPS satellite launched by Delta IV.
The Space Launch System goes to Mars.
And Hubble has a Throwback Thursday, #TBT. Plus, we're going to talk about the Google Lunar X Prize. Stay tuned. Tomorrow starts right now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. Got the flag up now. You can see the stars and stripes.
Private space station.
And welcome to Spacevidcast episode 7.05 for Saturday, February 22nd, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me as always, a beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Gary Higginbotham, and we will be your hosts for this episode. I don't even think those are words anymore at this point. I think it's just me going up like three octaves.
I appreciate the respect that shows.
Absolutely.
Nonetheless.
Before we get started with space news, I'd like to point out the Spacevidcast patrons who are sponsoring space news. Those are our producers, which should be the first item in your script. It's called Spacevidcast Producers, Tim, in the DDR.
You'll get it.
Seriously.
Anyhow.
There we go. All right. So these are the people who are who have spent $5 or more on this episode right here. They're the ones who are making this episode happen. And a huge thank you to the Spacevidcast producers for this one. And we're trying something new. They are sponsoring the space news section of this show. So thank all of the people on the screen for bringing the following space news to you. First off,
What if the news sucks?
Don't thank them. I don't know.
Okay, just checking. Go on.
First off, we've got a new GPS satellite that has been put into orbit by a Delta IV rocket. Here's that launch coverage.
5, 4, 3. We have RS-68 engine ignition. 2, 1, and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV rocket carrying the 5th GPS-2F satellite for the United States Air Force. The Global Positioning System provides worldwide positioning, navigation, and timing service for military and civilian users.
This is actually a Delta IV Medium Plus in a 9240 configuration. Nerds. Launch happened on February 21st at 01:59 coordinated time, and it launched a GPS-2F5 satellite. Is going to become the primary GPS satellite in the constellation. They are replacing the GPS satellites, the old aging GPS satellites, with new ones. And so this is one of those replacements. The satellite should enter operation in May. This was the 25th flight of a Delta IV. And the first stage, someone had asked a little bit more specifics about rockets. The first stage is a Rocketdyne RS-68. I'm sorry, it's supposed to say Pratt Whitney Rocketdyne, but we're not going to do that here. So Rocketdyne RS-68, it's liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen propelled, and it's 705,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. Because it's the medium plus configuration, it also has 2 solid boosters on the side that you just saw broke away right there. Those add an additional something like 600,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. And then the second stage is a Rocketdyne, RL-10B-2 engine, also liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen. I want to say it was the 10-2 or the C. One of those two was like the first liquid hydrogen-based engine that was built. I don't remember which one. And that's 24,750 pounds of thrust in a vacuum. So hardcore nerdy figures on the vehicle. I'd like to know if you guys like that information when we do a rocket launch. What do you think of having all of that? So anyhow, like I said, the new GPS satellite should enter operations in May, and there are 2 more in that particular block that will be launched later this year, also on Delta IV Medium Plus rockets. Cygnus has completed its first commercial resupply mission from the International Space Station with much less fanfare than, say, Dragon.
Well, I suppose, but I mean, it's not the first time that it's happened. So
yeah, it's been there, done that. So here's some footage. This is Cygnus leaving station. There's no audio.
Well, in space, there's not a whole lot of audio in general.
It was released from the robot arm at 11:41 coordinated time on February 18th. It re-entered. Unlike Dragon, Cygnus is not designed to re-enter and, what am I trying to say, survive. It re-enters and breaks up. Like most spacecraft that visit the International Space Station, it is designed to break up in the atmosphere. The advantage of that, actually, so you might think, oh, well, why can't you recover? Well, the advantage is you can make it lighter, so the spacecraft can actually be easier, and you can just throw your garbage into it. I mean,
yeah, quite literally.
Literally throw your garbage into it.
Yeah, well, and then it just breaks up in the atmosphere. I think it was over 3,000 pounds of garbage and excess equipment. This is the one thing to note, though, is this is the first operational resupply mission run by Orbital Sciences Corp. That you were making the comparison to SpaceX.
Well, that's why I was making this comparison to SpaceX, is because they both won that resupply contract from NASA. So they're both under the same NASA, what is it, COTS, COTS contract to send supplies up to the International Space Station.
So they both can bring stuff up, and only one can bring stuff back down to Earth. The other one comes down, sort of breaks up, and
well, actually, with the exception
disperses
of Russia, who can bring humans down but not really cargo, no one can bring stuff down other than SpaceX. So SpaceX right now is the primary way to get stuff back, cargo, not humans, cargo. Back to Earth.
And that's the term for that is down mass. Correct?
That is correct.
It's like download.
That's bonus points for you. All right. The House Science Committee plans hearings on the Space Launch System / Orion mission concept. That's coming up Thursday, February 27th. Here's actually some launch animation of what Orion Space Launch Systems on the bottom, that's the rocket. Orion's the spacecraft up top. The problem is right now these are crafts to nowhere, essentially, right? There's this giant, huge, massive rocket that can go many different places, and the spacecraft designed for deep space missions both have no place to go. And so this House Science Committee plans to have hearings and say, hey, what do we want to do here? And it sounds like, rumors are, the rumor mill, as it were, makes it sound like they're going to do a Mars / flyby of Venus trip.
Yeah, so the title is called Mars Flyby 2021, the first deep space mission for the Orion and Space Launch System, ? And it's when you start to delve into it a little bit, it does sound like the backup plan for the Inspiration Mars trip, which there was an Inspiration Mars of just going around doing a flyby of Mars, sort of Apollo 8 style, if you will, with a married couple. That was going to be 501-day trip. And then the backup mission was this 589-day trip that includes a flyby of not just Mars, but also Venus. And that was the original 501-day trip was supposed to be in 2018, I believe. And then the sort of backup one was going to be in the 2021-ish area. So no word yet on whether or not those things are actually related, or somebody just had like the same idea at the same time.
Right.
That sort of thing going on. But it should be interesting to see what happens. I don't know. I think a Mars / Venus flyby would be really cool.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right?
And the noises you're hearing in the subtle background are actually our next story, which is Curiosity's going backwards. So imagine for a moment your car, right? You have to rotate the tires on your car, and you do that because they wear unevenly between the front and the back. Well, something similar is going to happen to Curiosity as Curiosity goes over rough terrain. And so they want to see if they can evenly wear the tires on Curiosity by driving Curiosity backwards. And Tuesday, February 18th, the rover covered 329 feet, which is just over 100 meters, using the reverse driving. Unlike what they're going to need to do, this was over like very easy terrain. It wasn't designed to be difficult. It was designed. It was purposely easy so they could actually test the system. The farthest one-day advance of any kind in more than 3 months. So the biggest advancement of Curiosity was backwards.
Yeah, well, yes. And, the total, I think they call it the odometry, is 3.24 miles or 5.21 kilometers since its August 2012 landing. So you can see that was actually quite a ways for Curiosity sort of in general. And I just love this footage, I think. Well, it's not footage, I suppose. It's
Yeah, this is live footage from Mars. Right now, we've got we've got cameras there and camera operators all grabbing footage of the Martian rover paving the way for humans. The Martians do it for us, though.
Wow.
The Martians do it.
No more out of you. You know what I'm saying.
Hubble finds the possible oldest object ever seen. So the neat thing about Hubble is when it looks into the night sky, and it's looking into one of those black patches that look like there's nothing there, right? Star here, and you see nothing in between. And Hubble points its telescope there. The neat thing about Hubble is it picks up many different galaxies. Check out this images. So on the left side of the image, you see all of these. That would be, to us on Earth, a black patch of sky. Look at all the different galaxies sitting out there. It's
hanging.
Just hanging like, yo, what's going on? So that's really cool. But the other neat thing to consider that kind of blows your mind is that it takes a really long time for the light from those galaxies to make it back here to Earth. Billions of years. So we are essentially looking back in time. When the light makes it here, it's 13 billion years ago is what that light was. So we are seeing things that happened 13 billion years ago with Hubble. And it's we're used to the deep field.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the deep field picture.
Yeah.
It actually has a name, deep field. I think that was in 1996. This one is called Frontier Fields.
Frontier fields.
Because they think they have found one of the oldest galaxies as it was sort of alive and kicking, as it were.
Actually, go back to it. That was the galaxy you saw circled.
There you go.
The red circle right there is what is as far back as we think we've ever seen. It's kind of that the white square we've zoomed in is kind of the you see how that's all. Actually, NASA did that image for us. Yeah, we didn't do it.
Thanks, NASA. So we think that the oldest one that we found is called, I'm probably going to mispronounce all of this, but it's Abel 2744YN. It appears to be more than 13 billion with a B light years away, which we're given that time frame. It appears that this universe has formed when only the Milky Way was 650 million years old. It's 30 times smaller than the Milky Way, but it's creating 10 times as many stars as our galaxy does, or it was creating 10 times as many stars as our galaxy does.
We have no idea what's going to happen over the next 13 billion years because that light hasn't made it here yet.
So exciting!
Isn't that cool? I mean, we have our own time. We can look into the past by looking at the stars.
It's really cool.
How cool is that? That's super, super cool. All right. Before we go into break, I just wanted to say thank you again to the Spacevidcast producers who helped make this show happen. Spacevidcast producers and patrons are the lifeblood of Spacevidcast. Here are those producers once again. These are people who commit $5 per episode. So they have said, look, I'm going to give you at least $5 every time you go on the air to make one of these shows or more. There's a $5 level, a $10 level, and you don't have to stop there. If you think that these shows are worth more, you can actually say, okay, I'm going to give you $20 per show or $100 per show. That's a bit obscene, but I'll let it fly.
You know,
I'm not going to say
okay.
no. I'm okay with that. Then we'd also like to say thank you to the Spacevidcast patrons who make the show happen. Now, these are the people who are at $4.99 down to about $1 or so. And notice how long these lists are getting, right? I mean, we started off with just a few names 1 week. And you can become a Spacevidcast patron, too, by going to patreon.com/SpaceVidcast. And when you do that, you'll actually see... we've got, what are we at right now? $259.75. I'm pretty sure it's just a decimal place just to mess with some of the Spacevidcasters who hate decimals.
Of course.
With 86 patrons right now. We'd love to see that go up. We've already made the $200 goal that we had set per episode, and that allows us to do live streaming. Their next goal we have is $400, and we're getting close, right? We're about $140 away from our $400 goal, and I believe that we can do that within the next couple of weeks. If you guys are like what you see and you get value in the show, then return value to the show by paying per episode. And here's how that works. What you're going to do is you're going to commit some dollar amount per show. Maybe it's $1 per show. That's less than the cost of a latte at Starbucks per show. Or it's a lot less. Actually, it's probably less than a latte at Starbucks per month if we do 4 shows a month. Or you can say, I can't afford $1, or you can do $3, you can do $5, whatever number you want. Then, once you've committed that, you can actually set some preferences and say, you know what? I don't want to give more than $20 a month or $40 a month. So you can set these caps to make sure that even if we release 100 shows in 1 month, you're not going to be charged an obscene amount of money. And more importantly, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see there, we don't charge you until the end of the month. And actually, Patreon's the one who charges you as a third party. So they won't charge you to the end of the month. So if we do a bunch of stuff in between that doesn't make sense, you can cancel at any time to be like, no, I'm not going to do that, and get out of it so that you're not charged and you're comfortable with it. We're trying to create something here that adds value to your life, and then hopefully, again, the value for value, you give value back to us. And we want to be
keeps
fair.
us honest as
yeah,
well.
it keeps us honest, and it's fair to you. And it is the lifeblood of Spacevidcast. It's what keeps us going. I know some people have complained a little bit about how much we talk about Patreon. That's why we moved to the back part of the first segment for you guys. But really, this is what allows us to stay on air and do really cool things with you guys. And you can actually see the plans if you look at the goals on the Patreon page. I really recommend doing that. Go to patreon.com/spacevidcast. Go down to the left side. Look at the goals. One of the goals is when we make it is we give a flight to space once per month to some Spacevidcaster. So once per month we will give out a ticket to someone who's flying to space, X-Corps, Virgin Galactic, whoever is flying will give you a ticket, and you could win a chance to go to space. How cool is that? All right, so let's take a quick break, and when we come back, our main topic, the Google Lunar X Prize. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Spacevidcast. Our main topic this week is the Google Lunar X Prize. This, for those who don't know, this is a X Prize challenge. Oh, well, man, how would you describe the X Prize challenge? We should probably go back in time and actually describe X Prize as a whole.
Sure. So X Prize Foundation was formed in 1995 by a few people, but mainly this is a Peter Diamandis production.
This is a Peter Diamandis production.
Yeah, he's the chairman and CEO. We also have Robert K. Weiss as president and vice chair, and there is a board of trustees as well, including Elon Musk, James Cameron, Larry Page.
I had no idea Elon Musk was on the board.
Yep, Ariana Huffington and a few others, but nobody knows what their people's names are, so nobody seems to care. In any case, you may have heard of the X Prize Foundation because of that very high-profile X Prize, the Ansari X Prize, and the idea goes back to flying over the ocean. Correct?
Yeah, there was a prize challenge to go over.
I want to say it was to fly transatlantic.
Right, because it was generally thought that you couldn't do it, and so there was some prize money put out, a purse put out, saying the first person who does this wins this purse.
Obviously, way back in the day before like Delta was doing
Like
every other day.
1992.
Anyhow, so Peter really loved the idea. What ended up happening with that was that there were more people who tried to enter than what essentially the prize was worth. People who were trying to enter were spending more money than what the ultimate prize was actually worth. And Peter said that's hilarious because you have this interesting competition going on and a little bit of cooperation, if you will.
Yep.
And he thought that was a great idea. And the name X Prize originally came from, he didn't know what to call the prize. It was supposed to be, if McDonald's supported it, it would be the McDonald's, hamburger prize. But that sort of, it just sort of stuck as the X Prize. The X was just kind of the filler. And the Ansari X Prize sort of begat Virgin Galactic for the most part.
Yeah, so Scaled Composites was one of the competitors. I'm thinking Sir Richard Branson. No, the Burt Rutan.
Thank you.
This is my description of Burt Rutan. Sideburns.
For anyone who's seen a picture of Burt Rutan knows exactly what we're talking about anyhow.
Burt Rutan came up with Spaceship One. I wish we had his picture so we could show you.
Good
Spaceship
heavens.
1 and White Knight 1. And it won the Ansari X Prize by sending the first private astronaut into space and a dummy payload and they did it more than once. That was the thing, is you can't just go up once and then be like, can't we outs? Right? They had to do it twice in a certain amount of time, and they did that.
Right.
And that is what Virgin Galactic is based off of. White Knight 2, Spaceship 2.
And that was back in 2004. And X Prize Foundation does more than just space sort of ventures. There's a tricorder X Prize. There's an oil cleaning up X Prize. There's a genomics X Prize. There's all different kinds of X Prizes. And one of them is the so-called Google Lunar X Prize, which is to get, it's sponsored by Google, obviously. It is to get robots, up onto the moon and to do a bunch of different things. First, it's just to get there. It's to land safely. You need to take some pictures. You need to spend the night. You need to roam around a little bit. However that is, whether that be bouncing or rolling or what have you. Send pictures back, prove that you're there, blah, 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 blah. So there's all these different sort of things you need to do once you're there. But getting there, as we all sort of know, is more than half the battle, okay? But then recently, there were these sort of extra milestone prizes that have just recently been added, which is really cool and very exciting. And you had to, if you were already a Google Lunar X Prize team, you could then submit to participate in these milestone prizes.
Right.
Okay. So there was 33 total submissions. There were 11 submissions from Astrobotic, Moon Express, Hakuto, I believe, which is a Japanese team. I should go back. I'm sorry. Astrobotic is a U.S. team. Moon Express is a U.S. team. Hakuto is a Japanese team. Part-Time Scientist is a German team. And Team Indus is an Indian team. And these are the teams that are going to be competing for these milestone prizes.
Yes.
Now, you can still compete for the regular main prize and do the milestone prizes.
Milestones are like a shorter, right? So you've got this main purse of $40 million of putting your rover on the moon, moving it around and being like, look, we can do things on the moon now, right? I just summed it up really quickly. But getting to the moon, landing on the moon, roving the moon, sending live imagery back from the moon is very difficult to do. And so it's very expensive to do as well. And some of these teams need a little bit of financial help. And I think that's where these milestone prizes kind of come in. There's a $6 million up for grabs here. And what they can do is when they reach any one of these milestones, they can get, like, one of these milestones is up to $1 million, or is $1 million per team that reaches the milestone. Some of them are like $500,000, and that's money that they can then use to put back into their team to help them get to the moon. Because consider that launch costs, if you're going to fly in United Launch Alliance and you're the sole passenger, that's $500 million right there. On a Delta 5 or
that's
Delta 5.
Yeah.
See, they're building a new rocket. They're
Sure, why
combining the
not?
Delta 4 and the Atlas 5 into the new Delta 5.
Why not? I see no reason not to. There are 3 milestone prizes, and like you said, each one has a different purse on it, and not each team is going for every single prize,
Right.
which I think is interesting. The $1 million prize is the landing system milestone. It's based on the hardware and software that enables a soft landing on the moon. The 3 teams are going for that. There's the mobility subsystem milestone. That's $500,000 per team, based on the mobility system that allows the craft to move 500 meters after landing. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams going after that. And then there's the imaging subsystem milestone at $250,000. Which is producing mooncasts, which I love that name, by the way. We will one day do a mooncast.
I think we own that domain.
Probably. Consisting of high-quality images and video on the lunar surface. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that are going after that. And the other sort of exciting thing about this is that this is going to be going on throughout this year. So teams have until September 2014, this year, to complete the prize requirements, and the winners will be announced on an ongoing basis throughout the year. And the way that they are competing, there's the actual judging team that needs to go to the site where they're doing the testing and the proofing of these things, and judge. The judging panel will go and make sure that they're all doing.
I think this was a badly needed injection of both money and kind of awareness of the Google Lunar X Prize.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm sure these teams have been making a lot of progress. It just feels like it's so hard to get to the moon that it's much slower than I think a lot of people would have liked. And we keep, it feels like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like we keep kind of pushing up against the deadlines of what were originally done and keep having to kind of go, okay, well, you can have a little longer. Okay, well, you can have a little longer.
Right,
And
a
so
little bit.
hopefully this will help the Google Lunar X Prize teams get their goal of going to the moon and actually have some people starting to win the Google Lunar X Prize. I mean, we're starting to see some vehicles able to go to the moon, and I think if these teams can have their vehicles ready, maybe they could act as a secondary payload and do something really cool for not a lot of money in going to the moon.
Yeah.
But it's remarkable how hard and expensive and time consuming it is to get to our nearest neighbor.
This prize was introduced in September 2007. Sorry, I apologize. So yeah, I don't think anyone thought all right, it's going to take us this long to do, really. Because in 2014, that's just for all of the Earthbound testing and what have you. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yep.
Not anything on the moon quite yet. So I don't think anybody thought it was going to take this long. It's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I wonder if it's too hard or too big of a goal.
Right?
Or,
But does it lose its steam no matter what anyway? Even if this doesn't happen, like even if it's 2027, I suppose, and we don't have humans on Mars, listen to me.
No, we have Martians on Mars.
Right.
They're holding the cameras that are recording Curiosity
Right,
for
but
us.
I mean, even if we don't have humans on the moon, and we have these robots on the moon, and we don't, well, even in 2027, I would hope we have humans on Mars even by then anyway. Will it lose steam at some point? Do you see what I mean?
Well, if no one... So are you saying that if humans...
We're still in the exact same situation we are basically now, where
Wouldn't
nobody's
that be
out
sad?
there.
Oh, man.
It would be really sad, but would it... Does that mean that wouldn't be as interesting?
So if we're in the same situation, I think it will still be interesting. I think hopefully people will go, oh, wow, this is our first steps off the planet again.
Right.
Maybe to stay, right? Because you send the robots first. They pave the way for you. And this is a great way to send the robots first and kind of pave the way for us. But man, how depressing would it be if, right? Yeah. I almost don't even want to think about it. Is if by almost 2030 we're still here on Earth. Humanity has not stretched its space legs. There's no colony on the moon. There's no colony on Mars, and we're stuck here. And there, I would assume at that point there are no active plans, or at least realistic things that will happen.
Right, because when the prize was originally announced in 2007, the original cutoff date or the ending date was December 31st, 2012.
Right.
2012.
Yeah.
And in 2010, they said, dude, no one's even close to this. We got to push it back a wee bit.
Yeah, well...
And they pushed it to 2015.
I think, not only is it hard... So, understand, it's not just getting to the moon that's hard, but once you're on the moon, lunar regolith is nasty stuff.
Yeah.
The Chinese almost lost their rover. This is an entire country that spent a lot of money to put a rover up on a big rover, mind you, up to the moon, and they almost lost the thing because of the regolith. And these teams have to account for that as well. Plus, they have to do a lot more than the Chinese rover did to win this $40 million purse, which will not pay for what they're doing, right? And that's the thing. They're going to have to spend more money than they are going to get, and then they'll have to turn around and find a way, if they want to make money off of it, turn around and find a way to actually market the technology that they have, which Scaled Composites did, right? I mean, we have Virgin Galactic, who bought the White Knight 2 Spaceship 2 design, and then Scaled Composites is now part of Northrop Grumman. So, I mean, kudos to them. It was actually a good move for them.
Right.
But, it's easier to see suborbital... You look at sending humans to suborbital space and you can go, okay, I see a market there, right? You can send humans around the Earth in a fraction of the time. You can, just space tourism, just getting up there. I see that. Putting robots on the moon, not as easy to see. Now, there's still a market there. It's just not as easy to see or sell as, say, humans in space. And then I would say humans on the moon, humans on Mars, so forth and so on. What do you think? Google Lunar X Prize, is it exciting to you? Is it still as exciting as it was when it was first announced, right? Because I remember when it was first announced and I was like, woohoo! Is it still that exciting for you? And what do you think of these milestones? And actually, I almost want to get a pool going. Who do you think is going to make it to the moon first from a Google Lunar X Prize team standpoint? Yes. I know all the teams are going to be like, we are! But who do you think is actually going to make it? Yeah, but really, who do you think is actually going to make it there first? And what do you think of Google Lunar X Prize? Is it a good idea, or is this just something that's kind of neat, but...
I think they found you.
They found me. Is this just something that's... And, the best part is the microphone probably didn't pick it up, so we just randomly stopped for no good reason. No, I did. Okay, good. That's good. I don't seem as crazy as I actually am. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, comments from last week's show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
1, 0. Liftoff.
The fleet of space shuttles were doing amazing things in space.
We've got all your space geekery right here.
All right, now before we go into comments, our director brought up a point, which is we have a clip from Lunar Lion's second hot fire test, and this is a really interesting little clip. And this is going to be of it's the second time they've tested their engine, and they do a really great job of explaining this stuff. So I'm just going to let them just roll the clip.
So what you're seeing here is liquid oxygen flowing out of the engine right now. And the reason that we do this right up into the point where we're testing is that liquid oxygen boils at a really, really low temperature. The boiling point is somewhere around negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit. So we need to make sure that the temperature of the plumbing leading all the way up to the engine on the LOX side, which is liquid oxygen, is cold enough so that we can ensure that we have it in liquid form all the way up into the engine when we do our testing. So if you look here, you can actually see that water vapor in the atmosphere condensing down onto the plumbing and then subsequently freezing. You might not notice it in this video, but the spark plug actually delayed in firing, and that's indicated by the LOX flowing through before you actually see the blue flame. And what that means is that the LOX and the fuel had plenty of time to mix together in the chamber and entirely fill up the chamber so that by the time the spark plug did fire, we had a small detonation. With that detonation, a shock wave occurred, and the spark plug actually wasn't designed to be able to withstand that shock, so you can see part of it launch off the top of the engine. Fortunately, the bottom half of the spark plug got lodged in the top of the engine, sealed it off, and we were able to sustain hot fire for the duration of the test. We were definitely concerned about it at the onset, but after looking into the issue a little bit, and after altering what our testing procedures were, we're able to prevent that from happening in the future.
And there you go. So that was from Lunar Lion and their hot fire test. So pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Engines required for entry, descent, landing for the vehicle. And before we get into comments, I did want to mention one other thing that I wanted to mention earlier in the show, and I forgot to do that too. Man, I got to put it in the timeline.
Yeah, you do.
And that is Patreon. Once again, Universe Today is now on Patreon. So we think Universe Today is an amazing show. Spacevidcast is also now Universe Today patron. And if you're interested in that, you can actually go to patreon.com, search for Universe Today, and they've got some pretty cool reward levels as well. And anytime you can support someone in the space industry, science tech, any science, technology, engineering, math industry, money is the hugest stumbling block for all of us. So if that's something, if you enjoy Universe Today, what a great way to help them out is to contribute monthly. They're on a monthly schedule. We're on a per show schedule. And if you don't know who Universe Today is, just
universetoday.com.
There you go. It's a great site. Amazing news, updated more than once a day. It's amazing site. They've got a great lineup of.
They've got a great team of people that are international as well. So you get news from a little bit more all over. We're a little bit U.S. centric.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So comments from last week's show. This one comes from Chief Tyro. Someone likes Battlestar Galactica. I'm wary of Neil Tyson's Cosmos. Carl Sagan spoke with a very calm, smoothing cadence, but Neil Tyson's always yelling at me, and I'm not sure what I did wrong. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. It'll be interesting.
I thought it was an awesome comment.
But he's not going to be live, right? So I think a lot of times when we see Neil deGrasse Tyson speaking, he's speaking to a large audience, and it's one of those, he's trying to make a point, and he's really excited about things.
Why don't you love this as much as I do?
Right, which I think it's a little bit different when you have to do take after take after take after take of the exact same thing. I think
I'm excited. I'm excited for Cosmos. Again, anything that gets people excited about space.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? That's why we're here. I think Cosmos will do so much good for getting people excited about space. And then combine that with Virgin Galactic being able to fly to space this year. Combine that with SpaceX doing F9 or Dev stuff, being able to land their first stage, the extension of Grasshopper. And then looking at X-Core being able to fly this year. And then companies like Mass and Space Systems doing their automated stuff.
It's off the charts.
It's off the flipping charts. I think this is the perfect time for Cosmos to come in, because once you get excited and kind of hooked with Cosmos, you've got this great outlet of other stuff that you can look at. And if you want to keep up to date on all that stuff, you can watch it right here on Spacevidcast. You can watch it live, and you can participate live too in the chat room. By the way, hi chat room. Which I don't think we've talked to at all during this live show. I'm a terrible host. Space Friendly says, maybe this is too geeky, but I don't suppose when you're covering recent launches, showing launch footage, you could mention the few tidbits about the rocket in question. Fuel oxidizer, liftoff thrust, number of stages. Might be the 500th launch of a proton rocket, but that doesn't mean that people know much about it or how it compares to other rockets. So we tried that, actually. We took your suggestion, and during the Delta IV coverage, I gave you a bunch of those stats. And I'd love to know what you guys thought of us giving you all of those stats. Was it too geeky? The thing to remember about Spacevidcast is we want to be all-inclusive. We want to include everyone from all walks of life. If you have no idea how a rocket works, we want you to feel comfortable here. If you are a rocket scientist who designs these things, we want you to feel comfortable and not bored here. So we're okay with giving out information and stepping you up to it, but it's you have to do it in the right way. So love your comments and feedback as to how we did with that, and maybe we should equate more things to how large they compared to football field lengths and stuff like that. I don't know. All right, this next one comes from Paul Graham, actually. It says, after listening to the Get Off My Lawn episode, I have a couple of thoughts, and they're not open lunas. Number one, lawyers are evil. There are better people than lawyers. They'll make it so complicated, you'll need a lawyer to understand it. You'd be better off with history students. That's an interesting idea. Instead of using lawyers, use history students, because if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. So, in my humble but accurate opinion. Number two, Open Lunar's standard answer is, if you've improved it, it's yours. There's historical precedent for it, this. While you're at it, don't mess with anyone else's stuff. This includes footprints. Well, that will work to a point on the moon, but remember, everything's going to be a footprint on the moon. Number three, we'll have an outpost on the moon by 2020. Big announcements in less than 3 months. Well, Paul, when you're ready to make big announcements on how you'll have outposts there, hopefully human outposts, I assume that's what you mean, give us a call. We'd love to have you on the show and talk about it. Like, right on the cusp of that announcement, though, because the one thing that drives me absolutely bonkers is when someone says, yes, we're going to do this thing, and then like 5 years later, they're like, yes, we're still going to do this thing. That is a unique to the aerospace industry, and it is bad. You know, take a cue from technology, which is, we've got this phone. You can't have it today, but in 1 month, this can be yours. Same deal. All right. I'm not saying that you do that. I'm saying the entire aerospace industry as a whole does that, including a lot of the new space companies, and the old space company, all the companies, all of the people. Lazy Gamer says, quote, I think it's perhaps the wrong idea to think that we should make the rules so no one gets an advantage, as it were. If someone gets a financial advantage to be on the moon, we'd be there in the next breath of our lungs. So what do we care if it makes certain groups a lot of opportunity for making money if it means we go to the moon and begin developing it? I don't think our point was that we should remove advantage to anyone.
Right.
In fact, I don't think we should. There shouldn't be a removal of financial advantage. I think our point is we need to protect the things that are already there, right? So we've already got the Apollo landing sites. That's the first time humanity stepped foot off this planet. Those sites should be protected. That's just a thing that should be done. But there's no rule to do that. If I launched to the moon tomorrow and went up there, there's nothing preventing me from walking up and just taking what's left of the lunar module.
Taking, dancing, drawing hearts in the regolith.
Whatever I want to do,
nothing.
I can do that.
And that's kind of a shame.
Then there's the second part of that, which I think is what Bigelow was interested in based on last week's show, which is you go to the moon and you kind of say, okay, well, this is my area. How are you guaranteed that area, right? You spend all this time and money to go up there, and now you're not guaranteed anything. So there's no financial advantage to it right now, because you could go up there and the government tomorrow could be like, no, that's ours now, give it all back. Right, so I think
remove it,
or whatever.
Yeah, we're taking it over, or any of those things, and that kind of sucks.
Chris says, to be quite honest, I believe Mars 1 should have concentrated on the moon instead. It would have been much easier and more economically viable compared to going to Mars. Perhaps we could be a stretch goal for your Patreon. Seriously, there's a Spacevidcast studio on the moon. That has always been something we wanted to do, which is open a Spacevidcast studio on the moon and position it in such a place that we can somehow have the Earth behind us, which is, it will like always be behind us. That's kind of the cool thing. So it would be kind of hard. You have to kind of be up at an edge and anyhow. Yes,
you can tell he's thought about it.
We
That's
have
really
actually
what it comes down
legitimately
to.
thought about this. I thought this would be what better way to inspire the planet than to do a live show about the cosmos from the moon. This is absolutely something we want to do. I think a live and interactive show, right? We're on the moon. Ask us your questions. Let's have fun together. It's going to be awesome. So we did have actually we had a goal of 9 million per episode, and we would work on building a rocket or finding ways to go to the moon and Mars. And it just felt like that was so far out there that it was almost mocking the rest of the goals.
Yeah, it sort of felt pretentious.
It did. It didn't feel, and even right now with our $200,000 goal, it still is pretty far out there.
Yeah.
So I'm okay leaving that one because it is possible. I think as people get more and more excited about space, they're going to start finding Spacevidcast. And I encourage you guys, if you can't afford to do Patreon even at $1, that's okay, right? We still want you to watch a show. We want you to participate. But maybe you could tell other people about it, right? Get other people excited about the cosmos. That's why we're here. And as more and more people get excited about it, and as more and more people join our Patreon campaign, I think we can get closer to our goal of $200,000. And then maybe for putting a studio on the moon, by the time we reach that level, maybe it's only like $1 million per episode. Only $1 million per episode. But, that might be cool. And Zigger says...
If Mars One didn't go to Mars, though, they'd have to change their name. It'd be a silly name. I'm just saying.
And this is a point that we've brought up in the past. I'm just going to ignore the time. We're going to go long on this show.
Okay.
Zigger said, how cool is it that we live in a time where a lunar studio isn't totally insane? I know! It is really cool. All right.
It is. Not gonna lie.
Superman 1
I'm
says...
still gonna figure that one out.
All right, help me out here.
Isn't it Supreme One?
Supreme... Oh, yeah, Supreme 1. It's Supreme 1. Supreme on 1.
Yep.
Supreme on 1. All right. When I enter your website to find out when the next show will be, I only get USA time, specifically Eastern Standard Time. Please provide Greenwich Mean Time so that I can calculate my own country's time. Thank you very much. Well, we do provide... All right, so live stream doesn't let us do anything other than Eastern Time. I do not know why. It drives me crazy too.
Because we don't live in Eastern Time either.
We don't live there either. I don't know why they picked Eastern Time. It's like one small swath of our audience is Eastern Time, and everyone else has to do the offset from there. I agree wholeheartedly. I will email the CEO of Livestream and say, dude, let us use UTC. We don't use GMT anywhere because it is essentially deprecated. We use coordinated time. That is the replacement to GMT. It is more accurate. It is what our constellation of GPS, it's what your GPS essentially uses. I was going to say it's what the satellites for GPS use, but that's not true. So anyhow, UTC time, same offset, same time zone offset. I'll work on that. But for your record, it is always Saturday, 2100 UTC. The show is based in UTC. We base everything on this show in UTC. So when daylight saving time kicks in, the show is still 2100 UTC, and UTC does not honor daylight saving time, which means if you do, the show time switches for you. So our home time for Spacevidcast is UTC.
Our home time is UTC.
Our home time. Well, I mean, if you're going to do a worldwide, worldwide...
No, I know.
Earthly,
I'm explaining to the audience at home that I should wear an extra watch so I can do the offset myself, because our home time in Higginbotham land
is UTC.
Is UTC.
I base everything off of UTC, absolutely. It's so much easier. Time zone offset of 0. And remember, when we have people watching from the moon, what time zone are they going to be in? When they're watching from Mars, that will happen. Scott says, some other things to consider on lunar property. If you mine the moon, you diminish the tidal forces of Earth by a smidgen. There should be a tax on that at least. Are space lanes claimable too? So the thing is, though, maybe, I mean, adding more taxes to more things and making it harder, I'm not sure is quite the right way to go for...
The moon's already doing that on its own.
It is. It's moving away from Earth.
It's already moving away from Earth all by itself before we ever got there, okay?
Yeah.
So us mining
a little
bit,
Yeah, what she said. All right, Stefan says... What about a law that allows you to put a flag on an area once and then you get the right to that ground for, let's say, 5 years? If you're allowed to do that once in, let's say, 50 years, you'd be more cautious you'd be more cautiously and probably not the flag the whole moon. Okay, so the general concept is you put a flag down, you only get one flag, you place it somewhere, you get that for 5 years. You can't have a second flag, so you get a border around that flag. And then you can keep it there or you can move it or whatever you want to do, but that's the amount of area that you get. Yeah, I guess.
And
But
it actually
I mean,
doesn't sound like you can move it. It says you're allowed to do that once and only every 50 years.
oh, I guess you would add a second flag every 50 years.
Sure.
Maybe. I mean, that's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea, but it does prevent companies like Bigelow from going up 20 times and being like, here. So it might actually slow the development of the moon, not speed it up. It would make it a little bit more fairer, but, whatever. All right, this last comment this week comes from Fabio. It says, "Good job, you didn't make fun of my name this time." All right, you're right. Fabio. We make fun of your name because we love your name. It's what we do on Spacevidcast. If we're making fun of you, it means we love you. It means that we enjoy what you're doing.
Well, yes, but now everyone that we didn't make fun of, now they're upset. So anyhow,
And if we didn't make fun of your name,
the
we
non-geek
love
comment
you.
that was his non-geek comment. For my space geek comment, I'd like to make a suggestion. Is it possible to bring in a real engineer from some of these companies, say SpaceX, Orbital, or others, to comment on the engineering challenges that they think will affect the immediate future of space exploration? It could be anyone with a relevant experience in the field, a retired engineer, or even someone from our own community. That would be great.
So
We're working on it.
thanks for assuming that I'm not an engineer. That's fantastic.
I'm a coffee engineer.
Clearly, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Actually, no. Fundamentally, I do agree with what you're saying. We are working on bringing in some more guests. And if you guys know people that we should bring in, just let us know. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in email, benjamin@spacevidcast.com. Many different ways to let us know different things. And we do have a guest coming up on March 1st in the Spacevidcast producer level of the Patreon campaign. We'll be getting an email shortly talking about who that guest will be, and they are allowed to email in their questions early. It's going to be pretty awesome. So yeah, absolutely. And then I'm because we're on a roll and I don't quite want to go to break yet. Dan F in the chat room says, "Ben, you speak as if there's momentum in the interest in space. Is that belief based on truth?" Yes. All right. On that note, let's.
He believes it, so it
I
must
believe
be
it.
true.
Must be true. You didn't tell me to. You just asked if it was based on truth. You didn't actually ask me to prove it.
Good semantics, people.
Semantics.
Learn them.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, patreon.com/spacevidcast. I do want to, before we go into break, I know you've already cued it, Tim, but I would like to thank one more time our Spacevidcast producers who help make this show go. They've contributed $5 or more to the show. These guys are, they paid for this show to happen. And the Spacevidcast patrons as well, who contributed between $1 and $4.99. They also made this show happen. And if you'd like to be on that list, if you'd like to be someone who helps make this show happen, patreon.com/spacevidcast. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching, and we're going to see you next week. Been Higginbotham with me as always, a beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Gary Higginbotham, and we will be your hosts for this episode. I don't even think those are words anymore at this point. I think it's just me going up like three octaves.
I appreciate the respect that shows.
Absolutely.
Nonetheless.
Before we get started with space news, I'd like to point out the Spacevidcast patrons who are sponsoring space news. Those are our producers, which should be the first item in your script. It's called Spacevidcast Producers, Tim. In the DDR.
He'll get it.
Seriously.
Anyhow.
There we go. All right. So these are the people who are who have spent $5 or more on this episode right here. They're the ones who are making this episode happen. And a huge thank you to the Spacevidcast producers for this one. And we're trying something new. They are sponsoring the space news section of this show. So thank all of the people on the screen for bringing the following space news to you. First off, that was built I don't remember which one. And that's 24,750 pounds of thrust in a vacuum. So hardcore nerdy figures on the vehicle. I'd like to know if you guys like that information when we do a rocket launch. What do you think of having all of that? So anyhow, like I said, the satellite, the new GPS satellite should enter operations in May, and there are 2 more in that particular block that will be launched later this year, also on Delta IV Medium Plus rockets. Cygnus has completed its first commercial resupply mission from the International Space Station with much less fanfare than, say, Dragon.
Well, I suppose, but I mean, it's not the first time that it's happened. So
Yeah, it's been there, done that. So here's some footage. This is the action. This is Cygnus leaving station. There's no audio.
Well, in space, there's not a whole lot of audio in general.
It was released from the robot arm at 11:41 coordinated time on February 18th. It re-entered. Unlike Dragon, Cygnus is not...
What if the news sucks?
Don't thank them. I don't know.
Okay, just checking. Go on.
First off, we've got a new GPS satellite that has been put into orbit by a Delta IV rocket. Here's that launch coverage.
5, 4, 3. We have RS-68 engine ignition. 2, 1, and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV rocket carrying the 5th GPS-2F satellite for the United States Air Force. The Global Positioning System provides worldwide positioning, navigation, and timing service for military and civilian users.
This is actually a Delta IV Medium Plus in a 9240 configuration. Nerds. Launch happened on February 21st at 01:59 coordinated time, and it launched a GPS-2F5 satellite. Is going to become the primary GPS satellite in the constellation. They are replacing the GPS satellites, the old aging GPS satellites, with new ones, and so. Coming up, GPS satellite launched by Delta IV.
The Space Launch System goes to Mars.
And Hubble has a Throwback Thursday, #TBT. Plus, we're going to talk about the Google Lunar X Prize. Stay tuned. Tomorrow starts right now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. Got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and
Private space station.
And welcome to Spacevidcast episode 7.05 for Saturday, February 22nd, 2014. My name is Benjamin. This is one of those replacements. The satellite should enter operation in May. This was the 25th flight of a Delta IV, and the first stage, someone had asked a little bit more specifics about rockets. The first stage is a Rocketdyne RS-68. I'm sorry, it's supposed to say Pratt Whitney Rocketdyne, but
yeah.
We're not going to do that here. So Rocketdyne RS-68, it's liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen propelled, and it's 705,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. Because it's the medium plus configuration, it also has 2 solid boosters on the side that you just saw broke away right there. Those add an additional something like 600,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. And then the second stage is a Rocketdyne, Pratt & Whitney Rocketdyne, RL10B-2 engine, also liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen. I want to say it was the 10-2 or the C. One of those two was like the first liquid hydrogen based engine